Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. It's Friday night, 7:09 p.m. Central. We got Jay McNicholas co-hosting with us. He's here with us tonight. Uh, I was on a show on the network, Jay, the Dell show. What
Okay.
is it called? The soup. No, the delicious recipe. The delicious recipe. And then that was my first guest appearance in a long time. I liked it, but it's weird when you haven't done a guest appearance in that long. It definitely changes the tune a little bit. And then Laura Lee, I'm going on her show at the end of the month.
Okay. Cool.
And then that's it for guest appearances for years for me.
I've guest hosted on Joe's show a couple times after this one,
Yeah.
so yeah, I know how you feel.
Tonight's guest, Evelyn Rysdyk. Good to have you here, Evelyn. Very good
Good
to
to
have
be
you
back. Good
returning.
to be back.
I love it. I love this subject. This was a subject, shamanism. Do you say shamanism or shamanism? I say shamanism.
Shamanism.
Okay, that's
Shamanism.
what I
Yep.
hear mostly. And for a while, I struggled with it when I tried to say, I was like, am I saying it right? Like for years, shamanism. I got into that subject after going through testicular cancer at 17, and then my dad died, and I got kind of drawn to it. Uh, Different books, Secrets of Shamanism, Huna from Serge Kahali King,
Hmm.
different ones that I got drawn to. And then anyway, it helped me a lot because that was a lot. My dad dying, cancer, and then for some reason the universe showed me a lot of weird stuff, and I think maybe it was the shamanic death, that chemo, and I went through chemotherapy, lost one in the war at 17 to testicular cancer, and I began to have a lot of different experiences, from things in the sky that were odd with multiple witnesses to ghosts. One of my big ones, it's been a little while, I've seen some UFO stuff, but beings of light, I've seen those with my naked eye, completely sober, many times, like luminous beings of light. And it grew into doing the show to figure out, trying to find some sanity in what the hell was happening to me, pretty much. The UFO stuff, there was times where I was afraid to leave the house seeing some of that stuff. And I don't know if I've ever been abducted, but I have seen weird things in the sky that seemed like they were around my vicinity. Like maybe they were there for me, maybe they were there for the whole neighborhood. I don't really know. But that's what led to doing the show. And shamanism has definitely helped. So I always love to do these kind of interviews because it's healing, and it heals others. So it's great to have you here.
Well, thank you. And I agree with you. And extraordinary experiences like you're talking about are really part of what is a human experience. Most of us have been sort of programmed by our education and our whether we get that in the school, but also the education we get from our family and sometimes from our religions, to have a more linear view of the world. Step by step, in the box kind of thinking. And when you have a calamitous event like you certainly had, being ill and also losing your dad, or you have a spontaneous kind of awakening in some other form, you start to be using more of who you are. Because I think every one of us is wired for those kind of experiences. We're wired to be more than, little drones that go to our 9 to 5 job and maybe
Yes.
if you're lucky, you get to retire. We are amazing beings. If you think about the times that you've had these spontaneous awarenesses, you just had a gut feeling, you had a dream that was prophetic. These are ways that larger self makes itself known. It's like, hey, I'm really here. We think about some people sort of describe their spirit as if it's stuffed in their body like sausage meat in a casing.
Yeah.
And I think of it as infusing our body, allowing us to be alive, but it's so much bigger than we are. It's that part of us is non-local. It touches everything, and when we can step into that place, access the wisdom and guidance and whatever else we might need, and then bring it back to implement it, that to me is just an extraordinary way to live.
Definitely. And when you say creative energy, does that creative energy come from? I mean, I'm pretty sure this is what you mean, the source and the great spirit. And I guess my big question is, lately, I feel very run down. Like I just feel burned out on a lot of different levels, my job, stuff like that. And I'm just trying to figure out ways to, reignite that flame. And I'm praying, I'm listening to meditation music, but just tired. I don't know. I think a lot of people are feeling that lately, just the way everything is. So weird.
Well, some of it I'm sure is, we're all a little beat up by the pandemic and having
Yes.
to change all of our routines, which is ironic in some ways because our deep ancestors had to be light on their feet and change all the time. We've gotten into the habit of expecting tomorrow to be exactly the way we designed it.
Yes.
It's going to follow in all these nice tidy steps, and then we're surprised when it doesn't. We're thrown for a loop if some big change comes down the pike because we're unprepared for change in many ways. Not like our ancestors who had to continually adjust to a new environment. If you think of the way we've kind of spread everywhere on the planet, changing ecosystems, changing food sources, places to find shelter, all of these things they had to adjust to. And they never knew what tomorrow would bring. So that whole idea of how, in many ways, how small our life has gotten, I think it's making us have this tension, which is fatiguing. This tension between small self and big self is really exhausting. You know, it's
Yes.
you're stuck in a routine, and in some ways, our lives have gotten smaller in the pandemic. So it's more acute. The feeling of it's like this life is chafing. It's like, hmm, I think my life suit is a size too small. And you have an opportunity to work with that as a kind of fuel to get unstuck if you choose. And creativity is certainly part of that. I my original training was as a visual artist. And somewhere along the line, I became a writer, which is extraordinary because I was the kid who couldn't spell. And it's like, wow, I'm a writer. My fifth grade teacher would have never guessed. So creative energy is something I'm familiar with, but I always thought of it as energy. I never really thought of it as the technical skill. And our culture tends to assign people that are good at a technical skill. They can draw, they can paint, they're writing an opera, they're whatever. They're the creative ones. But in truth, I think creative energy is part of our onboard standard equipment. Otherwise, how could our ancestors have made all the changes they made, innovating all these things along the way, and bringing us here? It's about awakening that and using more of what we've got.
Yeah, the
I was going to say
mothership.
that was either a motorcycle or somebody's
Is that
really
you,
hungry.
Jay?
It's a motorcycle. I see him. The road is right there. I didn't plan that.
Jay ate too many burritos. I didn't know I didn't know what it was. Jay usually has a loud vehicle sound effect, so that's what I figured it was.
Yeah, one time the fire truck drove by and slowed the show down for a minute.
It happens. Well, that's the thing, is tapping into this energy and trying to figure out how to. A lot of it seems like, like I understand what you mean by spelling and being an author, because I have books that a lot of them are written interviews with different people on this subject. Bigfoot, they're on Amazon. There's UFO ones. The UFO ones are called Probes Happen, by the way. And the Bigfoot one is Praise for the Hairy Man, The Secret Life of Bigfoot. It's just interviews with people. But spelling, I mean, I'm fine at spelling. Punctuation, I am just an idiot. Like, I don't know. Like, it just does not stay. I forget it. And in like 10 seconds, I'll forget what you told me about punctuation.
The word processing software helps you because I need that kind of help too. It gives you them wiggly lines under places where there should be a comma there. They tell you, excuse me, you need a comma there. Or they'll go, what the hell were you trying to spell there? Do you mean this?
It's been a while since I've wrote a book, and I'd like to start back, but there's definitely a rut, and a lot of it's just forcing yourself to do this stuff. Is that a big part of it? Just like making yourself do it no matter what?
sometimes there's a tension in us where, even if you've done a lot of your own, kind of inner work, there's still a part of most of us that is kind of the doubting Thomas or Thomasina, like,
Yeah.
not everybody's going to be interested in this. Why should I write it? Why should I do this? We have that part of us that kind of sticks a pin in the balloon, and it takes, I think, a trust in creative energy to really use it. And that only comes with practice. It's kind of like trusting a partner. You don't come into the relationship like, oh, I trust this person completely. Trust is something you learn. You may step in with faith, but trust is something that you learn with experience. So I think we can learn to trust our own ability and in some ways kind of surrender to what it wants to lead us into. Because I think of creative energy as really kind of a dance, because you may have an idea that you may not have thought of, it just popped in, and then you kind of follow that trail for a while, and stuff happens along the way to enrich it. It might give you a sharp left turn somewhere through the process where it becomes, in your case, a different book than you intended to write. And I'm good for that, for sure. I start with an idea, I start to write, but I don't do the proposal for my agent until I'm all done with the book, because now I know what the book is about and I can write the proposal. So it's kind of like trusting the energy that you have inside to guide you to whatever is your next step. I mean, that's true about all things in life, I think.
Definitely. And I know there's something you were talking about in one of your chapters about ceremony for slaying the bully's words. Is that about dealing with bullies? What was that about?
Well, it's the inner and outer bullies, particularly around creativity. And I know this because I've interacted with not only my siblings, but other people that were peers of mine growing up. And they would look at something I had drawn and they'd immediately say, well, I could never do that. And they dismiss, because they say, oh, I'm not creative, I could never do that. And I would try to argue with them. It's like, no, you know how many practice sessions I learned to be able to draw hands that looked like hands? And they said, oh, no, you just have the gift. And I'd argue with them. I'd be this kid arguing with grown-ups sometimes about, no, it's the practice. That's, you're looking at a technique here, So it's about taking that part that says, oh, no, I can't, or somebody said you're not good at something, and you take it to heart. We have heard those kind of messages all of our lives, because if people around you like small lives, they don't want you to stretch beyond it. And that's an important thing to remember for everybody. If you're getting pushback for your dreams from the people around you, it's because you're rocking their boat. And you rock their boat by raising the possibility of they don't have to live the way they're living, because you're choosing to change yours. And they may actually work really hard to keep you back in the box, or, tell you what a fool you are to do something, because it's actually disturbing their status quo.
And what are ways that we can repair our energy? I know it's a complex subject, but what do you mean by that? What will we do to repair our energy?
Well, it's about kind of redoing the programming you got in the first place. So starting actually in utero, there's actually a discipline that is pre and perinatal psychology, because we receive input from the environment before we ever have language, before we can ever see what's going on around us. We're receiving mostly biochemical information, but we're also able to hear the adults around us when we're still in utero and as a small child. And we can't differentiate between what we have control of and what is external to us until we're almost 7 years old. So if something bad happens before the age of 7, for instance, if, I don't know how old you were when your dad died, or, the same thing with a divorce, or some calamity happens.
19, 20.
So you were a grown up. But if it happens to a kid, say a 4-year-old, and their parents divorce or they're fighting, the child will internalize that they're not doing it right, that they were bad, or they're not lovable enough, and that's why mama and dad are fighting. They will take it into themselves because they still don't have the ability to differentiate between what's happening inside and what's happening outside, which sounds like, the greatest kind of narcissism, but it's just the way children's brains are wired. And they can do that because they're taking it in a really kind of visceral way too. We don't just learn by hearing stuff and internalizing it in our mind. Excuse me. We take it in with our whole body. And when I think about the subconscious, I think of that as more like your body awareness of what happened. It's not tidy like thinking. It takes in everything and then tries to make assumptions about what's going on. And ceremony is one way to help antidote that. And, shamans have been doing ceremony for tens of thousands of years, and they use it to create harmony and balance. They rely on gratitude as a big part of that, of their work. And that action of doing something special to reinforce a positive message has tremendous power in the human psyche, because we are harnessing that part of us that's paying attention all the time and saying, look, this is really important. I'm really excited about this. We're all, we're doing all this stuff. And it begins to change that fundamental programming that we have in us. So it gets easier and easier and easier to do the things that we really want to do, and to get closer to that being able to have instant manifestation, where you're much more in alignment with the who you've become from here up, but you're getting the subconscious to catch up with you.
And what are some ways that we can get out of the burnout? What are some methods that you use to get in touch with creativity again?
Well, I always like to say the biggest, easiest one to do is to get outside. Because, we can go round and round and round inside of ourselves until we're sort of just going around the drain, And when we step outside, even when it's cold out and you have to bundle up, there's always something that is different in the natural world. The color of the sky, the way the birds are starting to come back finally up here. The ones that live further north even than where I live have already come through. They're on their way home. And that tends to put us in a bigger arena. We set our troubled psyche in this much larger place that allows us to kind of open up again. And it sounds, silly simple. But, you both know when you go out to a place that's really inspiring to you. You may have a great overlook somewhere, or I like to go to the ocean. You have that expanded horizon, you're watching the natural world, you start to feel yourself as a part of it, and you automatically get that openness and expansion again. And that's a great first step.
And reprogramming the subconscious, I know you mentioned that briefly, but what are ways to do that? I use a lot of positive affirmations. That seems like a good way. What is that one way that you use, and what are some other ways?
Well, that's one part of the equation. You have to also include feelings, because consciousness is really thought and feeling. We are wired as feeling organisms, and for much of our 20th century, 21st century now culture, we have put feelings over there somewhere. They're weaknesses. They are they impede being able to clearly think. Feelings are seen as a lesser thing.
Yes.
But feelings actually change our physiology. I mean, our feelings affect how our DNA functions. Our feelings affect whether or not we're going to have stress-related illness. I mean, that's from feelings. And when we do what shamans do, which is basically develop a gratitude practice and some way to actualize that, so you're doing it with a tangible action, even if it's, I keep a pocket of birdseed so that I can leave an offering of gratitude out that the birds and the chipmunks are going to eat, But it's my way of saying thank you for the gifts that I've been given today. And then in the morning, I always get up with being thankful for all the things that I have in my life. And some of them are really small, like I have a great cat, I have a partner, all those things. That's a big one. Shelter over my head. A lot of people don't have that. And then I always end with, and thank you for the miracles I will experience today. So I'm continuing kind of program myself for being in this receptive place for what life is willing to provide. And I'm changing, again, my physiology. When we're in gratitude, appreciation, love, or compassion, and I always teach gratitude because we confuse love with lust, codependence. It's a kind of fuzzy. We think about compassion, and is that empathy? Is that sympathy? But everybody can have a feeling of gratitude and elicit it again from a memory. When you feel gratitude, not just think about it, but feel it, your hormone of well-being, DHEA, goes up. Cortisol and adrenaline go down. Your respiration slows down. Your blood pressure slows down, calms down. Your gut starts to work better again. It increases gut motility. So you're actually digesting your food better. And again, in every cell, your DNA molecule, which is that beautiful spiral staircase that we all have, relaxes into its perfect conformation. And you may have heard about misfolded proteins in cells that can actually cause disease. Well, when the molecule of DNA is wound tighter onto itself in a stress reaction, the fight, flight, or freeze state, it actually impedes its capacity to do cellular regulation and repair. When we're on gratitude, and I think of it like that, I was like, I'm on gratitude, man. The DNA relaxes. I'm gratitude, man. It relaxes to its perfect conformation, and it allows it to do its job. And, there's a whole field now called epigenetics. You have the code that was given to you in your cells. It came from your parents and your ancestors. But the epigenetics is all the things that influence how well the DNA actually functions. And one of those, it's the food you eat and the chemicals you're exposed to, that kind of stuff. But also the environment that changes the shape of the DNA, and that's primarily our feelings. So learning how to use gratitude to get out of when you're feeling afraid, when you're feeling angry, because anger is another face of fear, judgmental, shame, blame, all that stuff, that's all faces of fear. And when you have those, which are human experiences, they're giving you information about something, then you can do repair. So once you've had the feeling, you can repair that by breathing a little bit, kind of get yourself back in neutral. I think of when you're stuck in one of those fight, flight, or freeze kind of feelings, it's like the car stuck in reverse, standard car stuck in reverse. You have to breathe a little bit with a focus on your heart to get the car back in neutral. And then when you're in gratitude, the car's back in a forward gear. And you're actually repairing what the fear and anger response did to your physical body. And what you do is eventually through practice is actually bring up your baseline. So it can improve mood, it can improve your physical well-being. And when you couple that with your affirmations, now you've got both aspects of you online. So you do the gratitude until you're filled with that feeling. And then using that gratitude, you begin to use your affirmations and feel what that affirmation is already done. You feel it in its richness, like you're living in it right this moment. So you're creating that energetic template.
So how do you know it's working? I mean, like, when you're hungry, you eat food, and the feeling goes away. How do you know that the DNA is, spirally aligned? Because I don't know. How do you feel that?
Well, they tested with all kinds of equipment, but you'll feel your body start to lose that tension when you're afraid or you're angry. You have a tension in your body. If you had a blood pressure cuff on, you'd notice, or you had the oxygen set, on you, you'd know that you're having a physiological reaction. We're used to it because a lot of times we're either angry or afraid. Because the other not so good thing is feelings are contagious, which is the first thing that finally explained mob mentality to me, because I could never wrap my head around how could a few angry people make people crazy and do terrible things like flip over cars and, set fires and what have you. It's because our feelings are projected from us all the time. So what I like also about a gratitude practice is it makes me more bulletproof from other people's feelings. So if they're troubled, if they're afraid, if they're anxious, if they're in a place where they're really angry, I just pump up the gratitude on my end, and what I'm doing is protecting my physiology, and they're getting the secondary benefit.
So if you're empathic, I'm empathic. It sounds like you are too. If you're empathic and employ these gratitude energies, is that what you call them? Energies?
Well, it's feelings, really. It's about using our feelings in a positive way.
So if you do these gratitude offerings like you do with the squirrels and all, and you do it correctly, I've walked into rooms and immediately I'm like, I gotta leave. I can't be in this room. There's too many angry people in here, and I turn around, I'm gone. So
we helped to found a complementary health center, and we'd have our meetings at lunchtime. And we had a code of ethics, and we promised that we would make sure everybody was heard. But 30 people who all think they're really smart all start to talk at once. And since it was lunchtime, it was like, you start to get a bellyache when everybody's sort of getting louder to be heard. So my partner and I would do our gratitude practice, eat our lunch, do our gratitude practice, and pretty soon the entire room would settle down. And it was like, oh, it's a superpower.
It sounds like I found that being louder gets a little bit does the same thing, but then they get mad at you. So
yeah, and then you're stressed to have to make yourself louder and be seen and heard. And I think that's one of the toughest things for us because we're social primates when we're not seen and heard. I think that's one of the toughest things that we experience. If that happens to us as kids, particularly, if we're not seen for who we are and appreciated for who we are, that is a big wound. And unfortunately, it's a wound that a lot of us carry.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I wouldn't have thought about it before, even during this kind of an interview. But when you're 5, what do you hear from other adults? You should be seen and not heard. And every time any adult ever said that to me, I was pissed. I wanted to go up and bite him on the shin.
Or you hear the thing, oh, you can't do that. You're too small.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
You don't equate that to the fact that you're short. You equate, because you're short as a little kid, you equate that to, I'm not good enough. I don't have what it takes. And that's the form it takes in our adult body. So the gratitude piece is something that can begin to heal us, because we're actually giving that sense of it's okay to our physical body, which is exactly what we didn't get when we were kids. Mm-hmm. And it's not to blame our parents, because they didn't get it either. People pass on what they get. So it's about giving that kind of comfort and peace to ourselves when it's all stirred up around us. Is like somehow we've picked up the baby and go, shh, it's okay. It's okay. I'll take you someplace quiet. And
I was lucky enough in my childhood that my parents didn't want to do the things that their parents did to them in the 30s and 40s and what have you, or the 50s and 40s. But my mom wanted me to do all kinds of. She wanted me to be able to play piano, and I hated it. I liked the lady. The lady that taught us piano was my dad's business partner's wife, and she was from Ukraine. So she had a thick Ukraine accent, but really nice lady and really good piano player. And my mom eventually let me quit. And now I'm 55, and I'm like, I wish she had not let me quit. I really wish that I can tinkle on it, but I can't do a Beethoven thing on it anymore. But they also, when I was really young, I was swimming before I was able to walk. We lived in Florida we moved down there when I was like 2. So I'm barely able to walk, and I'm jumping off of 15-foot high dives and swimming in pools. And, how tall are you when you're 2? 15 inches, 16 inches tall. So I was doing things that other kids their parents would panic. They let them in the baby pool, put the water wings on, and you just float over there and be unseen and unheard. So I don't have the problem where I can't do. I don't feel like there's nothing that I can't do. I taught myself at the age of 13 to swing nunchaku, like Bruce Lee's weapon.
Yeah.
I started
teaching. Without clocking yourself. That's the trick.
Actually, that is part of the trick. Pain reinforcement. When I was kids, parents spanked the kids. We got spanked. So if you associate a particular action with pain, you don't want to do it. Right. So swinging the nunchaku, you hit yourself in the head. You're like, oh, I better not do that again. I better do it right. And you eventually, it's 17 to 55. I don't know the math, however long that is. I've been swinging 40 some years. But I don't hit myself anymore because I know if I hit my elbow, then my elbow and arm are going to be numb for about 2 hours. If I hit my shin, I'm going to be limping for the next couple of days. So pain reinforcement really does work, but I was able to do things that most kids can't. I mean, where do you go to learn how to use nunchaku? I learned by a book. I read a book and I watched Bruce Lee movies and I backed it up and I go forward slow and back it up. And that's how I learned, by reading and a video machine.
Yeah, but now isn't that creativity?
I guess it has to be. That's something else I want to get back into, because I do have a degree. That's my degree in video production up there from the Savannah College of Art and Design. Now, we all use energy every day. I mean, you walk, you talk, even sleeping, you use energy. But how do you know what creative energy? What is creative energy? How can you differentiate that from just, say, jogging down the street?
Well, to me, it's that capacity that you talked about just now in your own stories, that capacity of there is this problem to solve. We may not even think of it as a problem, but it's something that needs to be solved. And the gears begin to whir. It's like you didn't say, oh, I'm just go and think about this. It didn't happen that way. You had these kind of spontaneous, I'm going to try that. Or, I think if I look at the movie and watch them, I bet you I could do, because I'm having trouble with this part of the movement. Let me watch that really closely. So you were firing on that, wanting to innovate, wanting to solve a problem. That's creative energy. Now, if somebody tried to make you do that, you might go, nah, not so much.
Yeah, like with the example of the piano. Yeah.
Right. It was a self-arising energy to want to find some way to make something happen that you wanted. And, it involved you having to learn a skill. It involved you having to do hard work. If somebody else made you practice as much as you did with the nunchucks, you wouldn't want to do it, right?
It was hours a day for a long, long time, 4 years or so almost, before I started teaching them. And but I had that same problem throughout my life. When I was young, I was like, hey, Mom, can we get a gun? No, I don't want any guns in the house. So she goes out and she buys me an archery set. No supervision. They just a target, a bow, and like 5 or 6 arrows, and no supervision, and no. This is how you use it. No one said, here, this is how you use it. I went out and I was like, trial and error, and eventually I was shooting bullseyes. And this is a funny story. So I was 10 when I got the bow and arrow, and I went to junior high school. Before that, my brother and sister and I were in private schools, and there was a conflict with the teachers at this final private school. So they moved us to public schools halfway through 8th grade. For me, my brother was 7th and my sister, I don't know, 4th or whatever. But it was September, halfway through September, December, we got back in the second half of the school, whatever it was. And the gym teacher took us outside to learn archery. And I don't know how he found out, but he knew that I was from a private school. So he singled me out. I was like, you, come here. And he hands me a bow and an arrow. He's like, shoot that target. I'm like, okay. Bullseye was the first shot. He got mad. I saw it in his face. He's like, try it again. And he hands me another one. I'm like, that one hit just outside the bullseye ring. He's like, try another one. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And I was like, this third one right next to the first one in the bullseye. And he got really, really pissed. And he said, you go away. And he got this other scrawny kid. He had him come over, hands this kid a bow. And this kid was like, his arms were like this, like a pencil.
So he had trouble drawing the bow.
Oh,
probably.
he didn't just draw it. He went, and he shot an arrow not anywhere near the targets, but up over the tree line into the woods behind the school. Thank God there wasn't a neighborhood back there. He might have skewered someone. And he looks at the whole crowd of kids and says, that's not how you do it. And I looked at him like, really, dude? That's how you want to teach us how to shoot a dangerous weapon? By doing it the wrong way first? He saw me give him that look, and he was like, ooh, this kid knows how to kill me. I better start teaching now. So that was kind of funny. But that, because of my mom, I was able to show that 50-year-old teacher up in front of 15 kids.
And suddenly you were taken much more seriously in that school.
Yeah,
being
he realized I knew what I was doing, and he didn't.
Right. You were not only the new kid, you were lethal.
Yeah, I was still kind of ostracized because, we came from private schools. But eventually, that same class went to the high school, 9th grade, and the high school was 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. There were like 2,000 kids in this school the 4 years I was there. But I wasn't picked on so much. I had, and I wouldn't say friends, but I was able to integrate with the jocks, the potheads, the motorheads, the electrical heads, the geeks, the nerds, the cheerleaders, everybody. There wasn't anyone in my class that ever made any fun of me, except for my name. My initials were John Vincent, so my parents wanted me to be called JV. What do they have in high school? Junior varsity and varsity. So I had to explain every time someone asked me my name why I was called JV. So finally I was like, drop the V, I'm Jay, and that's how I've been since 1980. Cool.
Very good.
Yeah, it was some good experiences. So I gotta say, I kind of know what the creative energy is. I never knew until you pointed out how to access it. And, there are other cultures and shamanistic type of things. They use things to access that, like ayahuasca, pot, LSD, et cetera, which I don't necessarily agree with. I don't disagree with it, but are there ways to access it without, because all of mine were by accident, things I wanted to do. So is there a way to access creative energy? Like, so you need to, like, whatever you need to do at work, drink a certain coffee, have a glass of some kind of tea, then boom, your energy starts going.
No, it's actually really, why I combined creativity and shamanism is the tools of being able to expand your awareness, because I don't call it altered consciousness. I call it expanded awareness. It's like stepping into that big self that we are. And I do it with repetitive drumming or rattling or repetitive chanting that helps to put your brain waves in that state. That puts you into a similar kind of place as when you're expressing your creativity. What I found, and because I didn't realize this, I thought I was a pretty creative person. I was a visual artist, and I was working in advertising, and I, made stuff with my hands. It's just the way I was. But over now 30 years, better than 30 years of journeying, it's like somebody took the creativity off the leash completely. And it's like, how did that happen? And I realized that the brain states that you get into when you're in that expanded awareness heightens that, what we used to call right brain. It's not so linear as that, but all those right brain skills get cranked up a notch. So you have, more imagination, more capacity to synthesize divergent ideas, like putting together things that wouldn't necessarily put together, but suddenly you can see how they can go together. Mm-hmm. It improves your intuition. It improves your capacity to kind of be doing two things at once. Like you're doing a task, but your brain is busy solving a problem at the same time. It improves that capacity. It improves your visual spatial thinking, so you can sort of imagine what things look like in space if you turn them. You can do that with your mind. Mm-hmm. And, people who are really good with their hands tend to be able to kind of visualize a problem and kind of look at it from different ways and know how to solve it. My father was really good
Yeah,
at that.
spatial recognition. Yeah, I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
that.
And it also improves your capacity to learn, your capacity to remember things, and also improves your skill around implementation. So those two things that seem like they're not related at all, being a creative person and being a shamanic practitioner, somehow they click together perfectly. And they click together perfectly, I think, because we have the capacity wired into us to do both. We're naturally wired to be creative, and we're naturally wired to have expansive experiences. So it's like our own self, more of us gets turned on to use.
Yeah, I wish there was a switch or a glass glass of something you could drink that turns all those things on at the same time. Because I went to art school and I went there to learn videography. As while I was there, I learned how to do photography, which is something I was always been interested in. So the creative stuff that I did was mechanical. I needed a device, an actual physical machine to take a picture. You can't just go, oh, hey, there's a pretty picture, and take it back to class with you. It's up here, and the teacher's not going to see it. He's not going to grade you on your brain.
You still had the ability to see what could be photographed. And that's
exactly. Yeah,
that's the intangible stuff.
That's the hard part, is finding a good picture, especially in like the shitty part of town. It's really hard to find good pictures. But also, I mean, I did the video stuff is all electronic. The creative part, holding a camera is easy. I can sit there all day and take pictures, and that's easy. But getting a script together and getting characters together and getting actors together, it's really hard. My final thesis, I had created this entire comic book character who's like a martial artist who gets killed by these bad drug addicts, drug dealers, gets brought back to life by UFOs. Jeffrey would like that. And then he has like all these weapons on his shirt that he teaches in his karate studio. So his superpower is he can pull one of these weapons off his shirt and they become real, and he can use them to fight for good. But I had all this scripted out, and I had my main actor was actually a kid in my school who was a martial artist who knew how to use nunchaku, which was the main weapon of the superhero. And day one of shooting, I get the camera, I got the lights, and we're setting up for the shoot. And I'm like, my actor's not there. I got the background actors are there. The secondary characters are there. I call him up. I'm like, dude, where are you? He's like, oh, what? I'm like, we're shooting. It's the first day. You're supposed to be here like an hour ago. He's like, oh, I don't want to be there. And I'm like, great. Whole thing had to be turned off. He didn't want to do the part, so I had to cut the class out of that semester and come up with another idea for my final thesis for video, which finally became a rock and roll video. But the creative stuff was there, but the guy wasn't.
Uh-oh, is she frozen?
I think she's frozen, yeah.
I don't know if you can hear us, Evelyn, but for some reason you're frozen. You're smiling and frozen, and we can't hear you, and you're just frozen in time.
Well, she is in Maine, so it is pretty cold.
Yeah, hopefully it's not from Maine, from the weather that froze her. But the ice age has come, and they'll find her later, many years from now, and they'll know she was a shaman woman from the Arctic age. Uh-oh, there's something definitely happened.
Yeah, she just bumped out. So, but I was loving the way she was describing how to get to the creative energy. I never knew there was I never knew it had it in me, but everything she described about the stories that I told her, it clicks. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Well, hopefully it wasn't internet trouble, or who knows what it was. But I know I was looking at our Norse Shaman book on Amazon during the interview, just checking it out. It's a good one. It has really good reviews, but it's definitely fascinating when you combine this with the Vikings and Norse and all that.
Yeah.
Thor and Odin. That's when it gets really good. That's what I like. I was going to try to squeeze some of those questions in. My mind was trying to formulate them to squeeze in the Norse questions. Well, hopefully she'll return. She may be having internet trouble. She was only going to do an hour or so we got some time in there. She may come back. We'll see. But finished Book of Boba Fett. It was kind of weird how they threw the Mandalorian in there, but I guess it had to happen. I mean, it was still good.
Oh, I knew he was coming. Yeah, there's no question about that.
And then the Pig Warriors died.
Oh, so I'm a couple episodes back, so
not
too many spoilers.
Dude, where have you been?
I've been working, and actually, so Survivor is one of my, and I know a lot of people don't like that show, but it's one of my vices. I've been going back to where I started when I came in on the show, season 10. I've been coming back forward, seeing all the episodes I've seen before. So that's what I've been doing over the last few weeks, is just reviewing all of those. They've speedlined it. They've trimmed it down from 39 days to 26 days, from 20 people to 16, and it was brutal. I mean, these 16 people like picked off one after another every episode. It was quite excellent.
I was just right here. We'll see if she comes back. I've been watching. You want a really good one? I think it's on Sci-Fi Channel, but I think it's on Peacock, because I know Chucky, that series, is on Peacock.
I've got Peacock.
Resident Alien.
Oh yeah, that's Peacock. Yeah, Sci-Fi.
Alan Tudyk. It's really good.
Oh, I love him. He's a great actor.
He's a gray alien.
Yeah, and a doctor.
Have you seen it yet? You haven't watched it yet?
I saw the first couple episodes, and it's pretty good. I haven't gone back to it yet, but it's a neat concept. Resident alien. He's a physician, and he's an alien, and he's resident on Earth, and he's a resident at the hospital or wherever his practice is. It's a great concept all the way through.
He's there to exterminate humanity.
Oh, is he? Yeah. So he's going to have one of those conflicts where he starts to fall in love with humanity and not want to exterminate it.
Some of them, like there's a Native American chick he likes and stuff like that. But and there's a lot of natives in it. That's pretty cool. But he's hilarious and he's really good. He was in that Harley Quinn cartoon I saw somewhere, and plays the Joker voice, which I didn't know that. I wasn't too big on that cartoon, but it was kind of goofy. It was Harley Quinn. It was kind of too silly, so to speak, but nasty too at the same time. It was just weird. I didn't like it. But I wrote her an email, so maybe she'll reappear, but they'll find her many moons from now. Evelyn buried in the ice. And goodness, what else have I been watching? I think I watched this weird cartoon called Spine of Night. It's like it's on Amazon, but it kind of reminds me of Ralph Bakshi and stuff, like Fire and Ice and Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. It just came out. It's like an animated weird fantasy movie.
Live action over animation, or animation over live action?
Yeah, Louis Lawless, isn't it? Lucy Lawless.
Okay.
Bunch of people. Spine of Night. She has returned.
My internet, for some reason. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you now. You froze. You froze mid-speech.
Yeah, you guys just dropped me off completely.
No, it wasn't us. Blame Al Gore. He invented the internet.
Her internet.
No, you dropped off my computer first, so that's for me. For me,
I figured it was internet trouble and stuff like that.
Yep.
So I know I want to talk about spirit animals. Is bear yours? And
that's an impressive piece of metal there.
I like it. I have a wolf. Let me show you my wolf tattoo.
Oh, that's cool.
Thank you. I have a Dracula too from my wilder days, from the same guy that did the wolf, but most people like the wolf better. My dad died. I went nuts. But little goth stage, but now I'm like, I guess in the redneck Georgia stage, the old man coyote stage. But I'm not. People say I'm the farthest thing from a redneck, but sometimes you just can't help it. Like, it's just there. I'm from Georgia, and I can't I've tried to get rid of it through a various method of psychedelics, but nonetheless. But I know with shamanism, there's other ways to get these states of consciousness. Some use psychedelics. I'm certainly not against that. I had an experience recently, and it's been a long time, and it helped me. And it helps a lot of people. Some states, shrooms are legal, which I always, no matter what kind I do of psychedelics, I always end up freaking out thinking I'm going to die or something. It seems like every time I do them, but that's the bad part. But other than that, I have some pretty good, it does seem like it helps, a lot of different ways. You just have to be careful and use discernment. But I know there's drumming and music and other ways, dance and creativity, art. There's many other ways besides that. And I know Michael Harner, who I've interviewed, and he passed, I believe, not too long ago. But I know he used to talk about drumming like that. Like the way he talked about drumming, it was like almost a psychedelic experience, but they were not doing psychedelics. Like they claimed they went to other, realms through drumming. That's what I want to do. I'd like to just drum and not freak out about croaking from psychedelics.
or thrown up, and no,
Yeah.
I've done a few things like that, and it's like maybe not. I'm not cut out for that. So I think for some people, if they're particularly left-brained, they might need a chemical support to get out of their linear way of being. So I think it has its place, absolutely. And the spirits of the plants are very, very powerful. But I also know that you don't have to do it that way. And in fact, I don't have the data in front of me here. It's on my desk. There's a new paper somebody put out, where they did double-blind studies and all that good scientific method, and they compared the experience of people who do shamanic journeying with drumming or some other repetitive stimulus to people who use entheogens. And the experiences parallel one another. They're slightly different because you're fully conscious in a journey state and simply expanded. You haven't sort of left this reality in the full sense. You're able to dance back and forth much more easily. But the experience of the way that you can access wisdom, guidance, this larger sense of self, all of that is the same. So they're really parallel tracks. So some cultures would use, nature's chemistry in order to get there. And for others of us, we can use drumming or rattling to have the same kind of thing happen.
And so when you use drumming and rattling, do you feel like your own psychedelics? Like, oh man, I'm tripping. I mean, how does it feel for you personally? Is it that strong for you?
I'm a really visual journeyer, so I have a lot of visionary experiences while I'm in the journey state. But I usually go for a purpose. I mean, so when I was early on, I was exploring, it's like, what is this like? And hanging out with my power animal and meeting teachers and what have you. Now it's more like I'm going for a purpose. So I kind of keep my myself on a task, But even within being on task, you have all these other experiences of, being in these impossible landscapes and meeting different kinds of teachers and beings that can support you to have this, again, this much larger sense of yourself and a larger sense of the world around us.
Definitely, and I think wolf is one of mine. I've thought about bear. I know I've read some interesting stuff about King Arthur in one of those tarots that used to be on Little One about the bear and stuff that seemed pretty interesting. Bat is another one that's come up. I've always seen bats like all the time, like on weird levels. Plus, probably the Dracula tattoo, but definitely some bat stuff. And what are some ways to find out your power animal? Let's say, how do we know what Jay's power animal is? It's a cat, isn't it, Jay? It's his pet cat.
I don't know. I'm going to have cats. I was going to ask that same question. How? I mean, do I have to go to one of those sweat lodges and drink a shot of ayahuasca? I don't know if I want to do that.
In my experience, you don't necessarily have just one. I think all of us have a natural affinity for a particular kind of animal. And we all already have a sense of kinship. And because we're in Western culture, we weren't born into a group who considers a particular animal like an ancestor, which some Native American tribes think that way. People in Siberia would think that way. They have the heart of a bear, or their tribal group really is led by the spirit of the reindeer. So we don't have that framework, but I think everybody has some sense of kinship. You know, that thing that your mind is saying, well, no, they're different from us, but our body is saying, no, somehow we're brothers and sisters with this being, and you have a close connection with them. I think that's our own self saying that being is important to me. I don't know why, but it just is. So we should never dismiss that part of us that just knows. You know, we've had it enculturated out of us, like where's the empirical truth about whether or not this is real. But if you have that experience, you know, it's just something, you know, right?
Yes.
If you did a journey, you could then ask a teacher to reveal a power animal to you. One who's going to be a protector, one that you can merge with every day to keep other people's cooties off you. You know, that energetic cooties, of course. That feeling of I have an ally in the world is very powerful. And I think learning to trust our intuition, learning to trust our innate kind of wisdom, that it wasn't stuff that we were taught in school, but we have an innate wisdom that can guide us to finding other important gold for us to find in the world. You know, there's I don't mean, you know, like the guys who are digging in Alaska or on the television to try to find actual gold, but the gold of living, you know, that feeling that you're living a life that's rich, that's full, that is in large part maybe unexpected. It's not the life that you thought you were going to live as a kid or when you were in school. You're living something that feels authentic, that is capable of evolving and changing. And the more you kind of go with that feeling in your gut, go with those intuitions you have, I think it gets stronger and stronger. You know, we tend to, again, culturally poo-poo that stuff. And so we tend to do that to ourselves. But when we say, well, I don't know why you talked about this, Jay, I pulled into a place and go, something about this just does not feel right.
Right.
And as long as we don't have the left hemisphere of our brain going, well, why doesn't it feel right? I need data. You know, as long as we don't pay attention to that voice and trust that the feeling is telling us something really important, then we trust a little more next time. We trust a little more next time. And we also let go of needing why. Needing to know why. Mm-hmm. It's like, we may never know why, but we trust that we made the right decision because our whole being said, I had this experience. We had, when I was in advertising, there was you always had to hire new people, and it was a account executive. And they're the ones that are sort of liaisons between the client and the creatives, you know, and they make the creative people in the advertising sort of get a rash. Anyway, they were all hepped up on hiring this guy, and I went, nope, he's going to cause trouble. And they said, what? He's got a great resume, a terrific personality. I said, I have no reason that I can tell you, but I can tell you for absolute certainty he's going to be a problem. And they went like, you know, particularly because I was female and they were guys, and they thought, you know, it's just that stupid women shit. And lo and behold, he was the worst person we had ever hired. He made all kinds of problems with the front desk people, the creatives. He just caused all kinds of turmoil, and actually also was not good for client relations. Now, I didn't have all that data before my gut was saying, but, you know, I trusted it. And because I wasn't in charge, you know, nothing happened with it, but I knew that he was going to be a bad actor, and it was true. So the more we go, oh, that was true, we start to pay more attention to this other aspect of us, not the school learned part, you know, but this other part of us that's so rich.
I'm a tiger, and it's supposed to be Year of a Tiger. So then I don't even watch sports, but I saw the Tigers lost, so I'm like,
Yeah, the Bengals didn't make it, so
something seems wrong here. So
Well,
I don't trust this Year of a Tiger thing.
those Bengals are like they're like the Chicago Cubs. It's like,
yeah.
they're
Almost
like
get there. And
yeah, and there they go.
but I do want to ask you, but like I guess I think the power animal is a pretty cool thing. Hollywood always shows that the main character is going to learn what their power creature is. They take some drug or they're in a sweat lodge and there's the smoke that makes them go into like a dream state, and then they go, "Oh, there's my dream animal." There are rituals you can go to. I don't know if you can how to get to them, but or if they'd even let you do it. But there are rituals that Native Indians and others have where people go into these dream states to find out who their guide or spirit animal is. How does those work, and where is there a way to get in on one of those to find out, do I have a guide animal?
Well,
it might be a cool experience to do at least once.
What you can start to use this is a part of my day that actually brackets sleep. It's the time when you're not quite falling asleep yet, or on the other end when you haven't quite awakened. Those are great times to receive messages from spirit. So what you can do is go to sleep at night saying, I want my power animal to reveal itself to me. And you may have to do that for a couple of nights, but you will start to get that experience happen. And I treasure those times. I try to be as still as I can when I'm first waking up and allow whatever insights that I have at that time to just really sink in. I don't write them down right away. I just let the process happen. And then once I'm more awake, I might write stuff down. But I've had brilliant solutions to how to solve a problem that just occur at that time. It's like the linear mind is not quite online yet and allows all the rest of us to do the heavy lifting. And so that other part of us is really connected to spirit. It's only that the linear mind that, it's like the bean counter inside.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like I might have to try that because with my luck, though, it's probably going to be some weird monster from Altair 6 in another galaxy. But
Jay saw
if they're good power animals, why not, right?
Right.
Jay, I'll tell the condensed story because if Jay says this story again, I'll jump off a cliff like my light beam stories, which I've told a million times. But Jay saw a Bigfoot once looking in at children playing, and it got mad that Jay saw it. And we've listened to this a lot. So Bigfoot could be Jay's power animal. But the other thing is I always think of Fight Club, that penguin scene where he sees his power animal. It says Slide or something, that movie Fight Club. That's crazy as hell. But Bigfoot's actually a cool power animal. I mean, all of them are, but that could be, you saw one. So
that would be pretty cool too.
I've seen weird alien stuff, so that I'm still psychologically getting over. But the power animal thing's always fascinating for sure, and definitely, and how to tap into it. And the traits of it, or like with shape shifting from the berserkers to, every culture has shape shifting in it some way. That's a big part of it too.
Yep.
Like getting into the energy of it, the spirit of it.
Well, for me, I merge with my bear every morning, and it's just intention, and I do it with gratitude. Thank you for enfolding me with your energy, keeping me safe. I really appreciate it. This is, you're a wonderful companion. I go on and on. And I don't think about it then until I notice I all of a sudden I'm paying attention to the bear again. It's like, what's up? It's really good when I'm driving because I have a lead foot and my bear gets my attention. Or we also have wolves that ride on the roof of the car. And, I might be got that foot down, and all of a sudden I'm paying attention to them. It's like, oh, I better slow down. And I'll up a little further, we'll pass a speed trap. So, they can protect you in ordinary reality ways that you really need. And it's just, the more you explore it, the more exciting and fun it gets, I think.
Definitely. And real quick, I just want to say that the name of your book to everybody, Shamanic Creativity Free the Imagination, Rituals, Energy Work, and Spirit Journeying by Evelyn Rysdyk. Where's the best place to get it? At Amazon, or is that the best?
Oh, they're
Wherever you can.
all the online vendors have it, and probably your brick and mortar stores also have it. If you've
Cool.
got one near you, go for it.
Cool.
On the border. It's across the border in Maryland.
There you go.
And real quick, I had a few more questions, but real quick, I
Sure.
forgot to plug something. I'm going to do it real quick, like it'll be real fast. Ozark Mountain UFO Conference, April 8th through the 10th, 2022. That's best western end of the Ozarks, Eureka Springs, Arkansas. Check that out. They have a website and everything, Ozark Mountain UFO Conference. And then also just our new YouTube channels, UFO Paranormal Radio and UFO Paranormal. Wait, it's UFO Paranormal Radio, UFO Paranormal Radio twice for some reason. Then the other one's called UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials. Just check them out. And I forgot to do that at the beginning of the show because I do that sometimes. But it's great that you put out so many great books, and I have most of them. I saw there's another one that I need to pick up at some point, an older one. But one of your books that we've talked about also is the Norse Shamanism book, and that subject I just cannot get enough of it. Like anything on it, from books to there's oracles and tarot and all that stuff. I love all that stuff. I just like the energy of it. There's something to it, and I have it in my roots from DNA and stuff like that. I've been told by I don't know if this is true, but I had a psychic say in a past life I was a Viking that drowned in the ocean. And then I had another completely different one tell me that they were around me. So I think there's some truth to psychic stuff, but I don't buy everything I hear. But it's come up a lot, and I just love the subject. But one thing I wanted to ask you that was kind of weird about it, when you say, let's say there's Thor and Odin and the different gods and goddesses, are they like archetype energies, or is there like really like a Marvel Comics Thor sitting out there hearing your prayer? I mean, is it more like an energy, like a consciousness you're tapping into? I just want to hear a little bit about that from you.
To me, we make our gods. I know I should expect a bolt of lightning at any moment now, but we ascribe energies to these beings that are somehow bigger and greater than we are. The things that are beyond our control, the weather, when a comet shows up, when we have a scientific understanding of these things now, but our ancestors certainly didn't. And so they've become very tangible in the form that we can interact with. We're wired for a face that is bilaterally symmetrical. Eyes in the front, we can relate to a being that has human features. So we have humanized in some ways these forces, these energies, these archetypes is another way to say it, but we've humanized them so that it helps us to build a bridge to this stuff of life that is so much bigger than we are. And because we have this way that we've co-created these deities, we then can interact with them, and we're interacting with them with this larger aspect of life that we feel really small in. We are at the effect, even now, and probably more so now that climate change is here to stay. We're at the effect of climate. We're at the effect of weather. We're effect of a giant asteroid come flying by and smash into the earth. We're at the effect of those things, and they terrify us on some level. But we can interact with these deities that function as kind of bridges to help us work with the not knowing, work with the capacity that we have to get more expansive than we are. And they function kind of like guides. They function like teachers. Sometimes they teach us like a heyoka, like the sacred clown, where they're doing the wrong thing, and so we learn the message because they did it wrong. And the other thing I think about when I think about these kind of deities is they guide us to understand the parts of ourselves that are quite deep and not as easily understood by us. Like, how is it that intuition works? How, if we think about that with our fine mind, how does that work? How is it that my feelings are contagious and they extend beyond the limit of my body? That's the kind of stuff that kind of is awe-inspiring. And when we are interacting with spirits, in this case, we're calling them gods and goddesses, I think it encourages us to live more fully, more in the, we'll use the Bible as an example, the New Testament, Jesus coming as this very human form of God, this spacious kind of God that we can't wrap our head around, this archetype of Jesus coming to remind us. In fact, he says to us, you're going to be doing stuff just like this. In fact, you'll be able to do miracles even bigger than I've done. And that's a wild paraphrase from the actual scripture. But I think we create them to pull us forward. We create them and we create relationships with us to show us the way to become more than we think we are. And even in a small level, we're interacting with the entire world as if it's inspirited, even if we don't believe in it. Because I guarantee on those cold nights, when you go to start your car, you are banging on that steering wheel or the dashboard going, come on, you can do it. Well, we all know that the engine doesn't hear us, but some part of that vehicle does, because we talk to it. We talk to it because some part of us knows everything is inspirited, and we're connected to that larger sense. And we're always looking for ways to get closer to it, because it's about getting closer to our own capabilities.
And it's funny you say that the inanimate objects are inspirited. I always thought I was weird. As a little kid, I always thought other things, objects, not sentient things, there's just rocks and stones and like the lamp on the table. If I knocked it over, like, oops, sorry. I'd say sorry to the lamp I knocked over. And it's not a living thing, but it's the weirdest thing. I've always thought that the inanimate objects have some sort of, maybe not a soul, but there's a presence, maybe. I don't know what it is. And then Star Wars came along, and that's exactly what Obi-Wan and Yoda said to Luke, that there's an energy in the rock, to the tree, from the tree to you, from how he describes the way the Force works. And I'm like, wow, where the hell did George Lucas come up with this? He must have been on some kind of acid trip writing this story. But it's funny you say that, because I've always thought I was the only person who thought other things had a consciousness to them.
Well, what's really great about being alive right now is theoretical physics, the quantum physics and this theoretical world of physics is talking about everything being energy first and foremost. Mm-hmm. That matter is born from energy. Yep. We had a physicist come and actually speak at one of our medical conferences, and he says when two photons that are particles of light, they don't have mass, they come together in what only a physicist would understand. They come together 90 degrees out of phase, and they create an electron that has mass. And an electron is part of all the atoms. And that same electron can wink back out again and just become light. So, it's an exciting time to be alive in my experience, because that split of spirituality and science are starting to converge in this amazing way, which, to me, it's like all the wisdom of the ancient humans, all the wisdom is starting to come together in one big book of wisdom, and we have the capacity to interact with it. And I can't think of anything more exciting than that, honestly.
I got one real quick. I just want to ask that came to my mind that I would just like to hear your perspective and get your mind to give me some info about this, because I'm trying to understand it. It's something I found on YouTube called Thor Gayatri Mantra, and it's from Dharma Nation. That's the channel, and it says Thor Gayatri Mantra, and there's a chant. But here's what it says: it says Asatru and Sanatana Dharma are sister religions, which I know I'm probably misspelling stuff, saying things wrong. Thor is known in the Vedic tradition as Jayanta. Thor's father Odin is known in the Vedic tradition as Indra. At the request of several Asatru leaders in 2014, Sir Dharma Pravartaka Acharya, which I'm trying to say this stuff, revealed to the world the Thor Gayatri Mantra. This sacred mantra was revealed to Acharya in perfect Sanskrit meters as gift to the Asatru community. Well, I guess it's just fascinating how they're comparing these Norse to also their gods. And I've also heard stuff about Thor being Jehovah and talked to Stephen Flowers about some weird stuff about that. But I'm just kind of curious to your take on that. I just find it kind of fascinating trying to understand it at all.
Well, the people in the Indian subcontinent and the people who eventually moved further west and populated Europe around roughly about 7,000 to 8,000 years ago.
Yes.
They were Proto-Indo-Europeans, and the Proto-Indo-Europeans are also Indo-Aryans. So it's the same people, and they had a belief in a sky god, and they were polytheistic. So they moved into, since we were all three of us here, I'm assuming are European Americans, they moved into Europe because of climate change. We're going to have the same kind of things where we're going to have to deal with climate refugees. They moved in and they were pastoralists. They defended their flocks with weapons and what have you. They moved into a place where it was primarily a matriarchal tradition, matricentric. And what I love about the Norse pantheon is it expresses this weird dichotomy. The Aesir gods are sort of Odin's their chief, and the Vanir gods they have Freya as a chief, and it's like those two things are still being expressed in that spirituality 1,000 years ago that came as those two cultures that were so different came together. And so the problem was solved differently in the East because they preserved a lot more of the feminine deities, and they weren't afraid to make some of them what they call wrathful deities. So they do the tough love. They're the shamama bears, they can smack you upside your head, but in the compassion because they love you, just like a mama bear would. And I love comparing those two because I have a good friend who is a shaman from Nepal. They call him a Jankri. And he, his deities are all these Eastern ones, but there's so much crossover between the two. Yeah. And it excites me, it's because you're seeing in that template the journeys we have taken as human beings. And where else are we going to go? And what other new kinds of ways to understand the life that we have and the cosmos that we have are we going to come up with? And that probably comes back to creativity again.
But here's something that might actually blow your mind. It's not just those two. It's not just the Aesir and the Vanir gods. It's not just the Indian and the Celtic pantheons. There's been some evidence across the last few years. A couple things. We'll actually roll back to the matter is energy thing. So they've made some amazing connections between the gods of the Sumer, with the first written language. 6,500 to 5,500 BC is where they say the first language was written. And the first thing they write is this story called the Enuma Elish, which is the story of these. They don't actually call them gods in the story, but we have come to consider them gods throughout. But these space beings essentially come to Earth, and Georgios Tsoukalos has it wrong. They've identified the name Anunnaki as those who from the heavens came down to Earth. Doesn't translate that way. It translates to exactly Anu is the father god, and so the Trinity is Anu, Enlil, and Enki. And so that's the Father, the God, and Spirit, which is now in Christianity. But the Anunnaki translates to the story of the sons of Anu. He sends his sons to Earth to make humans or whatever, for whatever reason. And the reason is they wanted slaves, but they connected those gods, the Anunnaki, to the gods of the Egyptian pantheon, the Roman, the Greek, and then when you get the Christian, Judeo-Christian, and the Islamic and the Hebraic traditions, they mash all those gods down to three dudes: God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. But they're the same three chief dudes: Anu, Enlil, and Enki. And it's amazing that the parallels between, like, Zeus is Odin, and Odin is Jupiter, and then you've got Poseidon and his different incarnations. And the stories are very close. And there's actually a story in the Egyptian tradition of Osiris, which exactly parallels the Jesus myth. That,
Absolutely.
spent 3 days in the underworld. Jesus wasn't chopped up into bits, but he had 7 wounds. And then, depending on which story of Osiris, he was chopped into 1,000 pieces or 7 pieces. It depends on which story you get. And then his wife puts him back together, minus 1 piece, the key piece. So that freaked me out. And then with the quantum physics kind of has been, to me, it's been like the same thing with the pantheons. All the pantheons of the world have seemed to be from one story. So there's got to be truth. So I don't think they're gods that have traveled from another planet, but matter, time, and energy are all the same thing. Different forms. They're all energies. But what also has come out, and Bob Lazar is one of the UFO whistleblowers who said that all of it works in waves. Gravity works in waves. Time works in waves. Energy works in waves. And our physics right now can't physically understand that. And our physics doesn't get it. But then you go to the quantum physics, and then it all makes sense. That you can't have energy without matter. You can't have matter without energy. So I love these people that are so highly religious. They're like, oh, God just snapped his finger and created the earth. No, we know by both quantum and regular physics, if the matter isn't already there to begin with, you can't just snap it into existence. So maybe there was matter here, and maybe there was a God, maybe it was Anu who used energy devices or some kind of technology to create our solar system or to create our galaxy, maybe. Don't know the story on that. But without the quantum physics and the energy and the matter and the time there, he wouldn't be able to do any of that. So that it all ties together as one big, holy cow.
Well, it's inspiring for us to want to expand ourselves to be able to get close to that. I think that's part of what, one role of religions is to teach us how to be good people, socially good people. Another one, I think, is to remind us that there's so much more than the mundane life that most of us live. And that, in fact, we use this wonderful expression in Buddhism, and it's become really endemic now, the idea of enlightenment, where you're now having this sense of a much bigger, we're in a much bigger playground than we ever gave it credit for, and we're bigger players in it than we've ever given ourselves credit for. And that's inspiring to us. It inspires us to want to be better versions of us, bigger, better versions of us. And, that is exciting. We may never know until we cross over, how much of what we believe is true. But the being in it and exploring it and being excited about it and investing in life with a capital L, investing in really being alive while we're here. Because my primary teacher is my great-great-grandmother, and she always reminds me, she says, even if you live well over 100, it's going to feel like the twinkling of an eye when you cross over. And she said, you need to experience, she uses the metaphor of a gathering basket, the garden trugs that people have when the lady goes out and cuts flowers in the garden, and she puts them in the basket on her arm. She says, you got to think of your life like that gathering basket. There's going to be stuff that you judge to be bad. There's going to be stuff that you judge to be good, but put it all in the basket. Because it's all beautiful. And when you no longer have a nervous system, that's what you have of your life. all those experiences, to pour over, and then to decide what it is as a soul you want to do next. So to hold on to the sweetness of life with a capital L, and to be open to all the magic that is around us all the time, it feels like a hell of a good job description for a human being, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. One thing I was remembering, I saw something on YouTube about some native myth cryptids and stuff, but there was a serpent, a horned serpent, and then there was the thunderbird, and apparently the thunderbird did not like the horned serpent. But then I found in the India, there was the Garuda, I believe that's what it was, and
Garuda.
and then there was another kind of serpent thing. But there was this weird story about these serpents that lived underground, and they come up, and then these things would come get them, and it was two cultures and same thing. So
Yep.
stuff like that, like little people with the Norse, the natives. I mean, those little people stories are in every culture just about. So it makes you think if it's all just the same thing and just different cultures trying to perceive it or understand it. It's definitely fascinating for sure. No doubt about
There's
it.
a physical aspect to almost every story. Something they saw way back then gave them the idea for the dwarves, the elves, unicorns, and they can't. This I don't know about if I believe this one or not, but years and years ago, I might have been in college, I might have been just out of high school. They found this wall in Greece. It has a bunch of mammoth heads, mammoth skulls. And mammoths they're elephants. They had a big trunk, so their nasal capacity was this big hole in the middle of the skull. And they came to think of that as being the Cyclops. So they think that skull is the origin of the Cyclops story. I doubt that they had the capacity back then to look at a skull and then paint a body around it like we do nowadays. We can take a skull, we can take a chimpanzee skull, we can take a human skull and sculpt these little different depths of foam around it and then recreate that person's face in a way to maybe identify them if they're a lost child or whatever. They didn't have that kind of imagination or capacity 2,000 years ago. So how do they know that this creature had only one eye? There's something else that they saw that gave them the idea of a giant with one eyeball.
Yeah.
It's not a skull.
Chimras.
I've got to let you know that I'm on my phone that is going to die very soon.
Okay. Well, we can
So
go ahead
we
and we
wrap it
yeah.
up pretty soon.
That's cool. And I'm glad you got to come back after the technical hiccup. It's definitely been a blessing having you here. What is your website for everybody?
It's spiritpassages.com.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Evelyn, and everybody check out her book, and definitely Norse Shamanism. All her books are great, but it's definitely been a pleasure, and thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, thanks a lot, guys. This was fun.
Thanks.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All righty, and let's see here. Her phone was dying, so I guess her internet died during it, and then she got on her phone. It's fine. She said around an hour, so we did plenty. We snuck in more than that, which is always
Right.
good.
Yeah.
But if you look up her book on Norse shamanism, it just has like 5 stars and like 1 million people love it on there on Amazon. But it's really good. Gets into this stuff a lot deeper. And maybe Bigfoot is your power animal.
It might be. I don't know. I'm going to try that trick of hers in the next couple of nights I go to sleep. See if maybe I can't connect with something. I don't see why it isn't a cat. I don't see why it isn't Bigfoot. But the cat thing may be from my mom because she's always loved cats. I've had cats my whole life.
Cats.
Off and on.
What's your Chinese animal?
I think I was born under horse, 1966. I think.
See, I'm a tiger. Christina is a dog. You're a horse. Dog and horse are supposed to be my best buds, like my Winnie the Pooh story.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
well,
what it says on the Chinese menu thingy at Chinese places.
They have donkey, yeah. So I mean, the donkey and bear. Do they have bear on the Chinese?
No, bear's not one, but I don't know why not. But dragon, I don't remember. There's a bunch. My nephew and his dad are cocks. and that's
They're
what they actually
roosters.
call it. Yeah.
Roosters.
On the menu, it says cocks. I swear it does. You go to the Chinese food place, and I've seen this menu in different places, the same menu with all the animals. You ever seen it at a place? It's like they all get the same menu. It's not a menu. It's like a thing you put your food on, like a piece of paper, but like a calendar of all their animals. And they're in a lot of Chinese food restaurants, but I guess they get them all from the same company or something. But it's called cocks on there, which means roosters, of course. But for some reason, they use cocks, which may not be the best idea, but nonetheless.
Well, yeah, I did just look it up. The Chinese year of the horse was 1966. So, nay.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. Make a horse noise.
Yeah.
Nay, nay, nay.
And it's weird because I've never ridden. I've only ridden horses a couple of times, but every time I have ridden a horse, it hurt. Like afterwards, like it hurt to walk. But I was never really. It didn't really. I don't feel like I was actually controlling the animal so much as the animal was following the horse in front of it. You know what I mean? So I don't think I connected with it.
If you want to find your power animal, you probably go to YouTube and type in power animal or Native American power animal or whatever, power animal, shapeshifter. Listen to some of that stuff. There's probably meditations on there, all kinds of stuff.
I wouldn't mind if I could get on one of those rituals. I mean, I guess you'd have to get really in tight and close with that community, whichever one, whether it's Native American or South American Indian. But that would be cool. I'm not against the idea of taking ayahuasca, but how many hours are you going to be dosed out on that stuff? I mean, what are they going to do to you while you're unconscious? You got to trust everybody you're on with.
DMT is a component in ayahuasca that's pretty fascinating, and what is pleasurable about it? It only lasts 10 minutes. So when you're starting to freak out, it's over. So
that's cool. But now they in the movie, God, where the dude turns into the caveman.
The movie where a dude turns into a caveman. I missed that one. What movie is that?
Yeah, William Hurt is in it. He goes into the jungle, he takes some ayahuasca, then he brings it back to his lab, and he goes into a sensory deprivation. Huh?
Altered States.
What was it?
Altered States.
Altered States.
Altered States.
That's the one. He takes ayahuasca in the Brazilian jungle or wherever he goes, but they make it seem like he's out for like 5 or 10 hours, 5 to 10 hours. I'm like, that's a long time. If it only lasts 10 minutes, that's pretty cool. But isn't ayahuasca that's also made with the women of the village chew on stuff and spit into a bucket?
No, they may do that in like some weird cannibal tribe or something, but they don't spit into it.
No, there's a native tribe that's somewhere in South America. They make this brew with they chew on some sort of fruit.
Some tribes may do that.
That's what they do. They chew up this fruit. The older ladies of the village chew up this fruit and they spit it into a vat, and then they cook it and it becomes an alcohol. So you're basically drinking like granny spit, but it gets hot.
Some of them may do weird stuff like that, but there's a way to do it without that. I've seen them do it, like in a documentary there. They don't spit in it, but I mean, some of them might do that for sure. Yeah. Usually it's a vine and liquid, and they soak the vine somehow, and then it releases the DMT into the liquid. And then if you watch Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia, a good show about a little dude that goes around doing drugs all over the place on Hulu. It was on Vice or whatever, but there's a whole thing.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Ayahuasca parts of it. But it's fun to do. I mean, it's good to experience it. Sometimes it's not fun to do, but like Stephen King says about LSD, sometimes you just gotta clean out the pipes, the psychic reservoir, the psychic sewer. You have to clean it out. That's a Stephen King quote. I saw this thing today where Stephen King is I wanted to ask her if she was near Bangor, Maine. She's in Maine. But Stephen King's doing a master class where he's teaching writing. And that's like where this class where they teach a bunch of, it's like long as hell. There's different people that do it, but he's releasing one. I have that book. It's about helping you to write better and stuff like that. But yeah, just tapping into that creative energy when you're burned out. I mean, psychedelics is a way, but she don't seem like she's done them before, but she didn't seem like she liked it that much. So I've heard a lot about drumming, and I guess that's kind of hard to believe at first, but if you really listen to that weird drumming long enough, you will start tripping out.
Yeah, those what they call singing bowls or humming bowls. It's like I don't know what it's some kind of mineral, and it either has a metal rim or it's a natural mineral rim, and you take a dowel and you spin it around and it makes a vibration, and like kind of like when you do crystal goblets, you get your finger wet and it hums. Same idea with the humming bowls. Is apparently this something in the frequency must be tapping into your brain waves and getting you either into like an almost dream state or meditative state where you're no longer on your main whatever the alpha rhythm is. It's like that one that makes you sleep or that one that makes you dream. It's got to be something that's tapping that.
Yeah, and it's just I guarantee you there's probably some good ones on YouTube from actual medicine people that you could listen to, walk you through finding your power animal. Did you ever see Fight Club where the penguin is his power animal? Slide. You never seen
No, I
Fight
never
Club?
saw that movie. I saw pieces of it, but
Gosh. Same thing with
yeah,
Christina.
not
She didn't
really.
see it all either. We're supposed to watch it one year again. But I've seen it a lot. It's really good. It's crazy. It's just messes with your mind a lot. It gets confusing, but then you still don't really figure it out, I guess. It's weird, but it's
It's
good.
Brad Pitt and Ed Norton, isn't it?
Yeah. But there's some weird stuff in it that's strange. It's hard to explain. I don't want to give too much away, but one thing I'm trying to figure out is on Netflix there was Daredevil, which was really good,
Yeah.
with Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin and that Charlie Cox as the blind superhero Daredevil that dresses in red like a devil and does weird stuff and he's blind. But there was The Punisher, which was really good with John Bernthal. There was Jessica Jones, that was pretty good. There was I forget the other ones. But anyway, they canceled them all because Disney bought Marvel. And it was weird because a lot of them were doing good. Like Daredevil did really good with
Yeah,
everything.
but if the rights weren't theirs, they have no choice.
Now they're bringing Moon Knight from Marvel back there, but it's owned by Disney. So why couldn't they just worked out something and, continued on? It didn't make any sense. It's like HBO killing Deadwood, which was
Yeah.
stupid when it was a great show with a lot of reviews and good ratings. And somebody got murdered at HBO and some guy got rid of all the R-rated programming, got rid of Rome, Carnival, and Deadwood. And it was stupid. Ian McShane won a Golden Globe for Deadwood. He was like a
Yeah.
mean pimp that owned a brothel. It was just mean as hell. Talked to an Indian head in a box, but for guidance. But just weird stuff. It's just weird. Like I don't understand why they wouldn't bring back at least Daredevil and Punisher. Those did really good. It's just
Well, the reason they probably had to cancel was probably Disney gave them an ultimatum: either you stop or we sue you. So
yeah, but you would think if they worked out the Moon Knight thing, then they would work out that. That's just
well, maybe they are. Maybe they're working on doing something towards
they're
that.
taking a long ass time. That's for sure. If they are,
That's why Hollywood sucks. There's this thing called development hell. I mean, there's been there were rumors of the Speed Racer movie back when I was in college in Savannah. We heard the first rumor like 1991, 2, or 3 that there was going to be a live action Speed Racer. Johnny Depp was Speed Racer, and then I forget someone else is going to be his Pops Racer, and then Monkey and all that. Never happened until 2006 or 2008, whenever that Emil Hirsch movie came out. Same thing happened with the Thundercats. They've been trying to do a live action Thundercats since who knows how far back. But so when too many people have their hand in the cookie jar, not everyone gets a piece.
yeah. If all they did was some dumb Thundercats, stupid, ugly cartoon that looks ridiculous, I didn't even watch it. It looks so stupid.
There were 2 revamps. One was okay. It was kind of anime-ish, but it didn't suck. And then the third one was really bad Jap anime. It's just
I remember when I got my first Thundercats as a wee young child. There was a Mum-Ra. He was the weird, undead, creepy. It's creepy. It was a creepy figure. It's like some weird undead mummy dude.
He's one of the
with red eyes.
scariest villains ever.
Yeah,
but
he was a scary villain.
I still have my Lino upstairs. I should have brought it down. He's upstairs. He's got the little.
What about the
wings on it.
reptilian dude? There was also a reptilian villain that was weird.
Yeah, Slythe.
Yeah, like a fat
Slythe.
reptilian.
The evil mutant Slythe. Let's see, Monkey and Jackalman, Rataro.
Man, Monkey Man. I can't keep up with them. but
We were talking about this the other day at work.
I would think it'd only be hard to do a movie just because of the effects and stuff, the way they look and everything.
The makeup effects could be easily done. Not hard. It's
You
not.
have to do it like
It would be
Avatar
easier
or
to do
something.
cats than it would be like the Planet of the Apes was really hard. The makeup was really difficult, not only to apply, but to design before the applications were put on the actors. The Thundercats would be easy. The mutants, you might have a little problem. You might have to do a little bit of CGI and a little bit of creative thinking there,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't be too hard. Mumra, however, he's like 9 feet tall, so you'd need someone who's like 9 feet tall and big.
Mumra's like Satan Nephilim or something. Like he's kind of like
He's an undead devil priest. So in D&D lore, he would be a
undead devil priest.
that's what he calls himself. The undead
There
devil
he
priest
is.
Mumra. There's a monster in D&D that he would be named after. I can't remember
Like
what
a
it's called.
lich. Like a lich.
A lich, exactly. That's exactly it. He would be a lich.
Yeah, he's a good villain. He's like walking around in his little mummy garb and classic Mumra. He looks different there. I'm looking at pictures of him. Some weird stuff. Definitely a weird villain.
Yeah.
Well, one day maybe they'll pull it off. We'll see.
It would be nice. I hope I have the money to do it so I can get in on it. I don't want someone to do it wrong. With the recent Dune movie, I've always wanted to do a decent Dune movie. This one, the special effects are awesome. The acting is awesome. The cinematography is awesome. They got the ornithopters correct, but they're not following the book. So it's like, what the hell,
What's you talking about the animated one? There's another one besides?
No, there's one. Yeah, there's a live action one that came out October last year on HBO. It dual premiered on HBO Max and in the theaters. I had to buy the DVD because I didn't have HBO Max when it came out. So I didn't.
Thundercats?
No, Dune.
Oh, Dune. Okay.
Yeah, Dune.
Because I saw the dumb Thundercats cartoon. It looks stupid. I didn't even watch it.
Yeah.
But Dune was okay. I like that. I kind of like the David Lynch one better, honestly.
I'm still thinking the David Lynch one isn't much better. The 6-hour 3-part miniseries from the Sci-Fi Channel was way closer to the book than David Lynch's, but I liked David Lynch's addition. David Lynch added the weirding modules, little devices they had to use sound and thought and motion, and you can burst organs and set fires and whatnot. That was added because he didn't want to have kung fu on the desert.
Yeah, Kyle MacLachlan was really good. He's like the Messiah. He did a good job. He made it. And then Sting is one of the villains. And
Sting was pretty good. The guy that played Popeye's enemy, Bluto, in the Popeye movie with Robin Williams, he plays the Beast for Bond. A lot of really great actors.
Who's the Beast for Bond? Is that the big fat guy that flies around?
No, that's the Baron. No, Beast for Bond is the other fat guy he sends his nephew that he sends to Dune, and then gets his head chopped off. That actor played Bluto in the Popeye movie. And then Francesca Annis and the guy who plays Toofer Howard with the big eyebrows, they were in Krull together. Another sci-fi fantasy horror movie.
Oh, yeah, I like that one a lot. I saw that
great movie.
The theater a long time ago with that little weapon. Here's something cool. I don't even know if you have a PC that can do this, but there's a Dune Spice Wars game coming out that looks really good, and it's actually by a company that did a very good, nice Norse Viking game, RTS, but this one's called Dune Spice Wars, and it's coming out in 2022 at some point. But it's one of the kinds where you have to do the politics and build your city, and you have your soldiers and your vehicles and all that stuff. And RTS, that looks actually really good. But Dune is the perfect thing for an RTS. You'd think they'd do more Star Wars RTS and stuff like that. But there's also a cool, I don't have it, but a Dune board game that looks really good. Like it's a board game, like, a game where you play it on a board. There's one that's based on, it's the same game, but you can get one that's older that has the characters that are kind of cartoonish, or you can get the one that's based on the movie with those characters in it. The new movie. I'd get the old one with the weird characters, cartoon weird ones. But I don't know. What about this new Lord of the Rings coming out. People are mad because there's black hobbits.
Well,
Look at the look on your face.
who cares what the hobbits look? The brush is going to be.
I don't care.
Maybe there's some
I'm
Asian
not going to make an
hobbits too.
issue of
Who
it.
cares? But it looks like it's all digital animation. But they're spending billions apparently on this show, and everyone's saying that the preview, the trailer was kind of crappy looking. But I'm excited it's going to be like the backstories. We're going to see the making of the rings. We're going to see Elrond and Galadriel and all the 5 armies of men and all elves and dwarves get together and kick what's his name's
first story is when the thing came the first time, right?
It's it's about the second age, I believe, is when the rings were made, not the first age.
Sauron, was it Sauron?
Yeah.
Or
Sauron is he's going to be in it.
Come back the first time, but they vanquished him. Then he came back again.
This will be the first, or the first time he made the ring.
I'd hate for them to spend all that in a flop. It's hard to find a good fantasy that's really good. That's Lord of the Rings. It's not, trashy.
I'm not real keen on the idea of it being digital animation, but the idea of seeing the first age, because this is something that Tolkien didn't write about. We get some glimmers of it in the Silmarillion, and there's some glimmers of it in the appendices of the Lord of the Rings books. But
I have a similarity in somewhere. I don't know what happened to it. I never read it. I have it.
Yeah, I lost all my great books. My brother threw most of them away, but I'll start collecting them back up.
Your brother threw your Lord of the Rings books away. What did he do?
Almost all of my books. Yeah, I only saved a few.
Was he mad at you?
No, he was actually mad at my sister. But in order to help us sell our parents' house, that was part of the deal. So he said, "You get rid of all this, and I'll help you fix up the house." I'm like, "All right." So I threw away almost all of my books, almost all of my board games, and my sister threw away nothing. So
why did you have to throw stuff away if your sister didn't? I mean, what does it make? Can you just put the things in plastic crates and keep them for another time? Put them somewhere.
That's what I would have had plenty of room. Still have plenty of room. I would have had for those books. But after he left, I went into the truck where he threw most of it, and I grabbed what I could.
Yeah. Well, just be careful. He sounds like a wicked brother, wicked stepbrother.
Well, no, I mean it's a life lesson, but I didn't need to have the life lesson. I could have boxed all that stuff up. But in retrospect, the container I got from Pods wasn't big enough to get even all of my stuff. So it's in the long run, it was the better way to do it because I was scrambling to get stuff done and get stuff out of that house at the last minute. So whatever got thrown away would have been left there anyhow. So,
well, we got to end this joker, and everybody, thanks for listening. Evelyn Rysdyk, and it's good to get shamanic knowledge on. Don't always have a lot of those kind of guests because they're not always easy to get. So it's good to have one on. It's been a little while. And everybody, we'll be back next week with Patrick O'Leary, and he wrote the book 51. And then after that is a big one, Joe R. Lansdale, New York Times best-selling author. He'll be coming on, and he was friends with Bill Paxton. Bill Paxton died from a botched surgery, which is pretty lame. Yeah. But I'm not going to ask him about that stuff again. But last interview, he talked about his friendship with Bill Paxton and going to the funeral and everything. But all right, everybody, have a good weekend, and we'll catch you next Friday. You listen to United Public Radio 107.7 New Orleans. Have a good weekend, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Watch out for Putin.